Hello, good evening, and welcome back. So, Tory MP Craig Whittaker points out the obvious and is being branded racist for it. And whenever it comes down to these things, it is solely down to party politics. Because Tory MP sparks racism row after claiming the vast majority of lockdown rule breakers are from Black and Asian and minority ethnic communities. Craig Whittaker of Calder Valley in West Yorkshire has sparked a racism row. He said sections of our community are just not taking the pandemic seriously. The MP made the comments after local lockdowns were imposed in the north. His point in all of this was, well, this is what the law of the land is. This is how people have to abide, even though, of course, I'm sure all of us disagree with those rules. But that's what's being put forward, and he's coming at it from a protection standpoint of saying we've got to look after everybody, and if there's anybody who's not getting the message, then we need to make sure that they understand it. As we've seen in Blackburn with Darwin, the messages were put out in English, Urdu and Gujarati. So it would be the same thought in order to push it into the other communities and for himself in West Yorkshire, as he's saying here. And this is where the party politics comes in. When it was Labour mayors and councils putting stuff forward to say it's got to be more accessible for the Asians, as in the Middle Easterners, then of course praise and saying yes, good, you're being very inclusionary, you're including these foreigners or these people who are now in England who don't even speak the language, but it's good of you to try and include them and make sure that they know, so that you're protecting them, because these people can't look after themselves, clearly. But when a Tory MP says we seem to be having a problem with this community, how can we get them to understand the severity of the situation, then he's slandered as racist. So it just hacks the whole way across. It's just double standards. You try to say, we're having a problem, how can we fix it? And if you're on the wrong side of the political spectrum, you're now buzzword, bad buzzword. Whereas if you're on the correct side of the political spectrum, then you're very thoughtful, considerate, compassionate, and good buzzword. So he made the comments during an interview with LBC Radio after local lockdown measures were imposed on large parts of North, including his constituency. When asked to clarify whether his statements related to the Muslim community, he said, of course. If you look at the areas where we have seen rises in cases, the vast majority, not by any stretch of the imagination all areas, it is the BAME communities that are not taking this seriously enough. Which I think we can all agree with by just walking around. And with the thoughts of racism, then you can't talk to anybody who is clearly Islamic to say, maybe you need to abide by the law, because then you're going to be branded as racist as well. That if you're in shops and they're not wearing masks, they are not going to be told to put it on, even though it is a legal requirement. Of course, if somebody else is not, then they will be asked to put one on, as it is a legal requirement. Even though we disagree with the law here, we're still aware that we have to abide by it, otherwise we face the repercussions. And the idea of British law, really, as it has been for centuries, is that the same law applies to everybody. There are no special exemptions, but as is continually the case, we're seeing with the Islamic community that yes, they do have special privileges within Britain. So he says, I've been challenging our local leaders, asking what we are doing to target these areas to let people know this is still a very serious problem. Until people take it seriously, we're not going to get rid of this pandemic. It's not just the Asian community in our area. We also have areas of high multiple occupancy that are in the same boat. When you have multiple families living in one household, that doesn't specifically have to be the Asian community, but that is the largest proportion, which again is completely accurate. There's more of an appeal to family cohesion, stronger family units in the Islamic faith than what has become of the Christian faith in England and the wider community, the culture of England. in which case, yes, you're going to have people living together more. Also, understanding that the individuals in the families don't need their own place and their own space, but instead can live in harmony with their own families on a daily basis, then they don't need to move out. Combine that, of course, with the lack of income and lower skilled workers, then of course they're not going to have the money to move out either, and are therefore going to be staying as one big family for longer. So the combination of these factors does of course mean that they have several generations living in one household. And then of course if you include the children socializing, going to school and the like, then of course they're going to be bringing it back, as they are asymptomatic, to the older people who have poor health because of poor life choices and inbreeding, which is rife within the Islamic community, cousin marriages in particular. But the response: Labour Equality spokesman Marsha Cordova said the comments were disgraceful and overt racism, adding that Mr. Whittaker was blaming the very people whose lives and livelihoods have been hit the worst by COVID-19. She urged Boris Johnson to condemn his comment and take action. On the contrary, he's trying to say, there seems to be a problem that you guys are worst affected by, as they agree. How can we fix it? But apparently we can't get to the stage of how can we fix it. A spokesman for the Muslim Council of Britain said, "This is a shameless scapegoating of minorities. It is utterly unacceptable and Mr. Whittaker should apologise." But again, he's not scapegoating. He's saying this is a serious problem. These people are most affected. How can we help them? The Prime Minister was asked during a Downing Street press conference if he agreed with Mr. Whittaker's sentiments, but chose not to criticise his colleague, because he is completely correct, as they go on to say. The statistics from Public Health England showed that of the positive cases in England, 37% were among the Asian and Asian British population in the week to July 26th. And I doubt I need to remind you that, thank Christ, 37% of England is not made up of Asian or Asian British people. White people made up 53%, and Black African Caribbean and Black British people 5%. So white people are being underrepresented when it comes to the deadly virus. Brilliant. At least that's something we can be underrepresented in and be happy with. But yes, there we are. And again, it comes down to cultural differences, lifestyle choices, and a lack of inbreeding, essentially. That is what it comes down to. So if cultures are happy being dirtier and less hygienic, and they don't wish to embrace science and biology and understand the damage caused by inbreeding, then this is going to continue, as we see that a lot of people in the Islamic community tend to have health problems anyway and need help from a first world socialized health service in order to stay alive. Then of course it's going to be the same when you have a virus coming about of whatever variety, even if it's just the cold or flu. Then of course people with suppressed immune systems are going to suffer worse. But anyway, let me know what you guys think down below. Always intrigued to hear what you guys have to say. And as always, until next time, have a good one.